In a small, quiet town, there was a girl named Emily who lived a simple life. Her father worked as a janitor at the local high school, cleaning classrooms, hallways, and making sure the building stayed in good condition. Emily's family wasn't rich, but they had a lot of love to give. While she never complained about her father's job, she often felt out of place at school. She wasn't like the other kids, whose parents had better jobs or whose families had more money. Some of the other students looked down on her because of her father's job, and some of the teachers didn't think she could ever achieve much because of her background. Emily had always loved music, though. Since she was little, she found comfort in the sound of instruments, and the violin, in particular, had always caught her attention. She would watch videos of famous violinists, dreaming of one day being able to play like them. But she never told anyone about her passion. She didn't have the money for a violin or the lessons to help her learn. So she kept her dream to herself, playing pretend concerts in her room with a stick she used as a makeshift bow. One day, her music teacher, Mr. Thompson, made a joke in class. Emily had been sitting quietly at the back of the room, as usual, when he suddenly pointed to her and said, "Emily, I think it's time you showed us your violin skills at the talent show. Go ahead and play something for us." The class burst into laughter. No one expected Emily, a janitor's daughter, to know anything about playing the violin. It was meant to be a funny joke, something to laugh at for a moment. But for Emily, it stung. Her classmates were snickering, and Mr. Thompson just smiled, thinking it would be a harmless laugh. Emily could feel the heat rising in her face. She hated how people always thought they knew what she was capable of just by looking at her family. But something inside her clicked. She was tired of being dismissed. She didn't want to let this joke go unchallenged. Deep down, she knew she had the talent to play the violin. She had spent hours, on her own, watching videos online, teaching herself as best as she could with no formal lessons. She may not have a violin, but she had a dream, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away from her. That afternoon after school, Emily went straight to the small room where the school kept unused instruments. There, she found a dusty, forgotten violin hidden away in the corner. No one had touched it in years. She dusted it off and held it carefully in her hands, feeling a sense of determination wash over her. It was a sign. She would play in the talent show, and this time, no one would be laughing at her. The thought of performing in front of everyone, especially after the teasing, made her heart race. But Emily wasn't afraid anymore. She had something to prove. The next few weeks would be full of hard work and practice, but she was ready. She was going to show them all, especially Mr. Thompson, that there was more to her than they thought. Emily wasn't just the janitor's daughter. She was someone with a passion and a hidden talent that would soon shine through. After the class ended, Emily couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The teasing still stung, but something inside her had shifted. She wasn't going to let her classmates' laughter or Mr. Thompson's joke stop her from chasing her dream. That night, after her father finished his shift and was resting in the small living room, Emily quietly slipped out of the house with the violin she had borrowed from the school. She had no idea how long she would be able to practice, or if she could even make real progress. But she wasn't going to let that stop her. Emily found a quiet corner in the local park where no one could see her. The sun was starting to set, and the air was cool and peaceful. It was the perfect time for her to begin. For hours, she focused on learning the basics. She didn't have a teacher to guide her, so she turned to YouTube videos. She watched every tutorial she could find, pausing and rewinding the videos over and over, trying to copy the finger movements and bowing techniques. The violin felt awkward at first. Her fingers stumbled over the strings, and the bow screeched loudly whenever it touched the strings. But Emily didn't give up. Every time she made a mistake, she smiled to herself and tried again, determined to get better. At first, the sound was harsh, nothing like the beautiful music she had always dreamed of playing. But she kept practicing. The more time she spent with the violin, the more comfortable she became. The squeaks and scrapes started to turn into something more like music, and that brought a spark of hope inside her. It was a slow process, and there were moments when she doubted herself, but the desire to prove everyone wrong pushed her forward. She practiced every day after school, hiding in the park or in the empty hallways of the school when no one was around. Emily didn't care how much time it took. She was determined to succeed. Her hands ached from gripping the violin for so long, and her arm was tired from holding the bow in the right position. But Emily ignored the pain. It didn't matter how tired she felt or how many times she failed. What mattered was that she was learning. The music started to come together slowly. She played simple scales at first, then gradually moved on to more complex pieces, building her skills bit by bit. Over the next few weeks, Emily's playing improved. She found a few pieces she liked, and soon she could play them without making mistakes. It was still hard work, and there were days when she wanted to give up, but her desire to prove herself kept her going. She would replay the moment when Mr. Thompson had made his joke, and it would fill her with a new determination to keep practicing. She was no longer just the janitor's daughter. She was becoming someone who could do something extraordinary, even if no one else believed it yet. Finally, the day of the talent show arrived. Emily was nervous, but as she looked at the violin in her hands, she knew that all the hours of practice had led her to this moment. She had worked harder than anyone could have imagined, and now it was time to show the world what she could do. She wasn't just going to play for the people who had doubted her. She was going to play for herself. This was her moment to shine, and nothing was going to stop her from making her dream come. The big day had finally arrived. Emily could hardly believe it as she stood in front of the school auditorium, clutching her violin case in her hand. The noise from the bustling crowd of students, teachers, and parents filled the air. The auditorium was packed with people, all waiting for the talent show to begin. Emily felt a wave of nervousness wash over her, but she took a deep breath and reminded herself of all the hours she had spent practicing. This was her moment, and she wasn't going to let fear take over. Her classmates were gathered near the front, chatting excitedly about the upcoming performances. Emily could hear them whispering among themselves, laughing about what they thought would be a funny performance. Some of them had made jokes earlier about how she wouldn't be able to play the violin properly, but Emily tried to push those thoughts out of her mind. She was focused on one thing: playing her best. The talent show was about to begin, and one by one, students went up on stage, showcasing their talents. Some sang, some danced, and some played instruments, just as they had practiced for weeks. Each act was met with applause, but Emily couldn't help feeling like the attention was on her next. She was the last one on the list. The pressure was building, and her palms were starting to sweat. Finally, it was her turn. As her name was called, Emily's heart raced, and she could hear the murmurs in the crowd. Her classmates' laughter had died down, replaced by a curious silence. Emily stood up from the back row and walked slowly toward the stage, her footsteps echoing in the quiet room. The bright stage lights shone down on her, making her feel as though the whole world was watching. She climbed the few steps to the stage, carefully setting her violin case on the stand. As she opened it, she felt the eyes of everyone on her, and for a moment, she almost wanted to turn and run. But then she remembered the countless hours of practice and the determination that had gotten her this far. She took the violin out of its case and held it in her hands, feeling the familiar weight of it. The crowd went silent, and all Emily could hear was the soft beating of her heart. She positioned the violin under her chin and lifted the bow. Her hands were slightly shaky, but she steadied them. She closed her eyes for a second, took a deep breath, and began to play. At first, the notes were soft and delicate, almost hesitant, but soon the music began to flow more confidently. The bow moved smoothly over the strings, and the sound of the violin filled the room. The music was beautiful, graceful, and full of emotion, far beyond anything anyone had expected from the quiet janitor's daughter. As she played, Emily felt her nerves start to melt away. The music was her escape, her chance to tell a story without words. She didn't need to speak to be heard. Her violin did the talking for her. She played a piece that she had spent weeks perfecting, one that had come to mean so much to her. The crowd was captivated, and slowly the quiet buzz of whispers died down. Emily could feel their attention focused entirely on her. Her fingers moved with ease, and the bow danced across the strings, each note clearer and more powerful than the last. The crowd was no longer laughing or whispering. They were listening. She could hear the soft gasps of surprise from the audience as they realized the depth of her talent. Emily wasn't just a girl who worked in the shadows. She was a musician, and she was ready to show the world what she could do. As the last note lingered in the air, the room was filled with an almost magical silence. It was as if time had stopped for a brief moment. And then, just as quickly, the audience erupted into applause. Emily opened her eyes, surprised by the overwhelming response. She had done it. She had played her heart out, and it had worked. The teachers who had once mocked her were now staring at her with wide eyes, unsure of how to react. Her classmates, who had expected to see a disaster, were now speechless. Emily stood there, holding her violin, a small but proud smile on her face. She had shown them all. The applause felt like a wave crashing over Emily. She stood frozen for a moment, not sure how to react. Her heart was still racing, but now it was from a feeling of excitement and surprise. The audience's response was overwhelming. She had never imagined that her performance would have such an impact. As the clapping continued, Emily slowly lowered her violin and gave a small, shy bow. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on her, but this time, it wasn't mocking or judgmental. It was admiration. For a moment, she wondered if she had imagined the applause. Maybe it was all just a dream. But the cheers grew louder, and Emily felt a warm sense of pride spread through her. The students who had once laughed at her now looked at her with wide eyes, their jaws slightly dropped in disbelief. Some of them even looked embarrassed for the way they had treated her before. It was a feeling she had never experienced, being seen and heard in a way she hadn't thought possible. As she stepped off the stage, Emily's hands were still shaking, but now it wasn't from fear. It was from the rush of emotions that flooded her. She had done it. She had shown everyone that she was more than just the janitor's daughter. She was a musician with a gift, and she had just shared that gift with the world. Her classmates, who once dismissed her, were now whispering to each other, some of them asking, "Did you know she could play like that?" Emily felt a tap on her shoulder, and she turned to see Mr. Thompson, the music teacher who had made the joke about her playing. He was standing there, looking at her with a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Emily," he said, his voice sincere, "I had no idea you could play like that. I'm sorry for making fun of you before. You have real talent." For a moment, Emily didn't know what to say. She had never expected an apology from him. But it wasn't just the apology that mattered to her. It was the recognition. She had worked so hard to prove herself, and now, for the first time, someone who had once doubted her was acknowledging her skill. "Thank you," Emily said softly, her voice steady. "It means a lot to hear that." As she walked back to her seat, she saw her classmates' faces, no longer filled with judgment or laughter. Instead, they were filled with respect. Emily had shown them something they hadn't expected, something they couldn't ignore. She had proven to them that talent doesn't depend on where you come from or who your parents are. It depends on the heart and the effort you put in. And Emily had put in everything she had. The rest of the talent show continued, but Emily's performance was still the topic of conversation. Her classmates approached her during the break, asking her about how she learned to play, how she had gotten so good. They were amazed at her dedication and talent, and some even expressed interest in learning to play the violin themselves. Emily couldn't help but smile. She had not only silenced her doubters, but had also inspired others. As the talent show came to a close, Emily felt a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. She had accomplished what she had set out to do, not just to prove the teachers and students wrong, but to prove something to herself. She was more than capable. She was ready to take on whatever came next, and she knew that this was just the beginning of her journey. The applause slowly died down, but the feeling of excitement lingered in the air. Emily couldn't believe what had just happened. She had been nervous and unsure just moments ago, but now she felt like she had achieved something incredible. She looked around the room and saw her classmates staring at her, some with open mouths, others with wide eyes. She could tell that the way they saw her had changed in an instant. The teachers who had once joked about her playing the violin now looked at her with surprise. Mr. Thompson, the music teacher, had been the first to speak up, but Emily could see that many others were feeling the same way. The once dismissive smiles had turned into looks of genuine respect. The room had fallen silent when she played, and now, as the applause faded, it seemed like everyone was reflecting on the talent they had just witnessed. For Emily, the moment felt surreal. It wasn't just about playing the violin. It was about something deeper. She had spent so much of her life being overlooked and underestimated. People thought they knew her based on her family's background, but today, she had shown them all who she really was. She wasn't just the janitor's daughter. She was a person with dreams, talent, and determination. It was a realization that filled her with pride. As she made her way back to her seat, she couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. She was happy, of course, but there was also a sense of relief. For the first time, Emily didn't feel like she had to hide her passion or talent. It had been recognized, and she had earned it. She sat down, still holding her violin, and looked around at the people who had once laughed at her. They were no longer laughing. Instead, they were talking among themselves, whispering in disbelief. One of her classmates, Sarah, who had been one of the loudest critics before, walked up to her. "Emily, that was incredible," Sarah said, her voice filled with sincerity. Emily was surprised to hear such words coming from her. Sarah had always been one of the popular students, and Emily had never expected her to say anything kind. "I didn't know you were so talented. You really showed us all up." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thanks," she replied softly. "I've been practicing for a long time. I just needed a chance to show everyone." The conversation was interrupted by another classmate, Tom, who had also been one of the ones who made fun of her. "I have to admit, I didn't think you had it in you," he said. "You proved me wrong, Emily. I'm sorry for making fun of you before." Emily felt a surge of pride. She had never expected apologies from any of them. The fact that they were now acknowledging her talent meant more to her than she could say. It wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could do something incredible, despite the odds. As the talent show wrapped up, Emily could feel the shift in the way people saw her. No longer was she the quiet, unnoticed girl in the back of the classroom. She was the girl who played the violin beautifully, the one who had shown everyone what hard work and determination could achieve. She had earned their respect, not through words, but through her music. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt confident in who she was. She had not only proved the doubters wrong, but she had also inspired others to follow their own dreams, no matter where they came from or what obstacles stood in their way. Emily had shown that talent and hard work could break through any barrier, and she knew that this was just the beginning. In the days that followed the talent show, Emily could feel the change in the air. The school had shifted, and so had her place within it. It was as though the entire atmosphere had been redefined by her performance. Everywhere she went, she could sense the difference. People who had once ignored her now smiled at her in the hallways. Some of her classmates even greeted her with respect, something she had never experienced before. The whispers that followed her weren't filled with mockery, but with admiration and curiosity. It wasn't just the students who were different. The teachers had changed their attitude as well. Mr. Thompson, who had once joked about her violin skills, now spoke to her in a much kinder, more encouraging tone. After the show, he had pulled her aside and said, "You really surprised us all, Emily. I can't wait to see what you'll do next. Keep playing." His words had meant more than she could say. For the first time, She felt like someone in authority actually believed in her. Even the principal, Mrs. Harris, who had never paid much attention to Emily, came up to her one afternoon after class. "I just wanted to say how proud I am of you for stepping up and showing your talent," she said, her voice warm. "You've set an example for everyone here." The words felt like a victory, and Emily could feel her chest swell with pride. She had never expected the principal to notice her, let alone offer such kind words. Emily wasn't the only one who had changed. Her classmates had too. During lunch, Sarah, who had been one of the popular girls, sat down next to Emily. "You know, I was wrong about you," Sarah admitted, looking at her with a genuine smile. "I always thought you were just the quiet girl, but I see now that there's a lot more to you. If you ever need someone to talk to or want to practice together, I'm here." Emily was taken aback. It wasn't just the compliment, but the offer of friendship that made her heart feel lighter. For once, she didn't feel like an outsider. The following week, a few more students approached her with similar messages of support. Some even asked her to play a song for them during lunch, eager to hear her violin skills once again. Emily felt overwhelmed by the kindness she was receiving. The same people who had once ignored her were now seeking her out, asking her about her music, offering to help in any way they could. It was a reminder that when you prove yourself, others start to see you in a new light. But Emily didn't let the newfound attention distract her. She remained focused on her passion for the violin. In the evenings, she continued to practice, sometimes until late at night, perfecting the pieces she had learned. There were still so many things she wanted to accomplish with her music. Emily knew that this was just the beginning of a journey, one that she was determined to follow, no matter what. The respect and admiration from her peers weren't the only changes that happened. Her confidence had grown too. She felt more comfortable in her own skin, no longer hiding her passion for music. She had always known she had the talent, but now everyone else saw it too. Emily was beginning to believe in herself in a way she never had before. She wasn't just the janitor's daughter anymore. She was a violinist with a future, and she was ready to take on the world. A few weeks passed, and things began to settle into a new rhythm for Emily. Her confidence had grown, and so had her reputation. What had once been a quiet, unnoticed part of her life was now a source of pride. She wasn't just known as the janitor's daughter anymore. She was the talented violinist who had stunned everyone. People no longer whispered behind her back, but instead they approached her with questions about her music and how she had gotten so good. One afternoon, as Emily was leaving school, a woman approached her outside the building. She looked unfamiliar, but there was something about her that made Emily feel like she should know her. "Excuse me, are you Emily?" the woman asked, with a warm smile. Emily nodded, feeling a bit confused. "I'm Mrs. Harris, the director of the local music academy," the woman continued. "I've heard a lot about your performance at the talent show, and I think you have incredible potential." Emily blinked in surprise. "Me? Incredible potential?" "Yes," Mrs. Harris said, nodding. "You have a rare gift. I would love for you to consider applying for a scholarship at our academy. We offer full financial support for students who show promise, and I believe you could benefit greatly from it." Emily felt her heart skip a beat. She had always dreamed of going to a music school, but she had never thought it would be possible. Her family couldn't afford private lessons, let alone a prestigious academy. The idea seemed like a distant fantasy, something that only rich kids could do. But here was this woman, offering her an opportunity she had never imagined. "I don't know what to say," Emily stammered. "I've never even had lessons, I just learned on my own." "That's what makes it so impressive," Mrs. Harris replied. "You have raw talent, and with the right training, you could go far. You've already proven that you can rise to the challenge. So, what do you think?" Emily's mind was racing. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. An academy scholarship was an opportunity she had only ever dreamed about. It was a chance to take her music to the next level, to receive the training and guidance that she had always wanted. But there was something else, something that made her hesitate. She didn't want to leave her family behind. Her father had worked so hard to provide for her, and she knew he would never want her to leave him alone. I need to think about it, Emily said finally. It's a big decision. Mrs. Harris smiled kindly. Of course. Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready. That night, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the offer. The idea of going to a music academy, of studying violin with professionals, seemed too good to be true. But as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she realized that this was the opportunity she had been waiting for. This was her chance to make her dreams a reality, to show the world what she was truly capable of. And yet, the thought of leaving her family behind made her heart ache. The next few days were filled with uncertainty as Emily weighed her options. She talked to her father about it, and while he was proud of her, he also didn't want to see her go. You've worked so hard for this, he told her. But I want you to follow your dreams. You deserve it, Emily. Whatever you decide, I'll be proud of you. With her father's words in her heart, Emily knew what she had to do. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and this scholarship was the opportunity she had been waiting for. It wasn't just about her family anymore. It was about her future. She had to take the chance, even if it meant stepping out of her comfort zone and leaving home. The following week, Emily called Mrs. Harris and accepted the scholarship. The moment she made the decision, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew she was making the right choice. This was just the beginning of her journey, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The day Emily received the acceptance letter to the music academy, she could hardly believe it. She held the letter in her hands, staring at the words on the page. She had done it. She had worked so hard, and now, the door to her dreams was finally open. It felt like everything had led up to this moment. The long hours of practice, the teasing, the doubts. And now, it was all worth it. But even with all her excitement, there was a part of Emily that felt nervous. She was leaving the town she had grown up in, leaving behind her father and the life she had always known. The academy was in a different city, far away from her home, and she would be living on her own for the first time. The thought of being far from her family made her heart heavy, but she knew this was a chance she couldn't pass up. She had worked too hard to let fear hold her back. The night before she left, Emily sat in her room, packing the last of her things. Her father stood in the doorway, watching her with a quiet expression. "Are you sure about this?" he asked gently. His voice was filled with a mixture of pride and concern. Emily paused, looking up at him. "I'm scared, Dad. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail?" Her father smiled and walked into the room, sitting down beside her. "You've never failed at anything you put your mind to," he said softly. "I've watched you practice for hours. I've seen you push through the hard days, and I know you have what it takes. This is your chance, Emily. Don't let fear stop you from following your dreams. I believe in you, and I'm proud of you." His words filled her with warmth. She had always known that her father believed in her, but hearing him say it out loud made all the difference. She wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek, then smiled. "I'm going to make you proud, Dad." The next morning, Emily stood at the door with her suitcase in hand, ready to leave for the academy. Her father gave her a tight hug, and for a moment, she didn't want to let go. But she knew it was time. She was ready to step into the next chapter of her life. As she walked out the door, her father called after her, "Remember, no matter where you go, you'll always have a place to come back to." Emily looked back and nodded, feeling both sad and excited at the same time. She was leaving home, but she wasn't leaving everything behind. She had her father's love and support, and she had the determination to succeed. The journey to the academy was long, but Emily didn't mind. As she traveled, she thought about all the things she would learn, all the new people she would meet, and the music she would create. The city where the academy was located was bustling and filled with excitement. It was everything she had dreamed of. There were so many opportunities to explore, to learn, and to grow. When Emily finally arrived at the academy, She felt a mix of awe and nervousness. It was bigger than she had imagined, with large buildings and grand concert halls. But it also felt like a place where she could belong, where she could learn to be the musician she had always dreamed of being. She was ready to take the next step in her journey. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer the girl who was afraid of failure. She was the girl who had shown everyone, including herself, what she was capable of. And now she was going to make the most of every opportunity that came her way.